The world said, never again after the Holocaust. But in 1994, it happened again. For 100 days, nearly 1 million people were slaughtered in Rwanda, while the world watched and did nothing. Why? Because these lives were African. Imagine your neighbor, someone you grew up with, suddenly turning on you. Imagine the teacher who once taught your child, now holding a machete at your door. That was the horrifying reality in Rwanda in April 1994. Friends killing friends, husbands killing wives, even priests betraying their congregations. This genocide didn't come from nowhere. It was meticulously planned, fueled by hate radio, political manipulation, and decades of division between the Hutu and Tutsi. But here's the darkest truth. It wasn't just extremists. Ordinary people joined the killing. The roots of this tragedy go back to colonialism. When the Belgians ruled Rwanda, they used a classic divide-and-conquer strategy. They classified people as either Hutu or Tutsi, even issuing ID cards that marked a person's ethnic identity. The Tutsis, a minority, were favored, given power and education, while the Hutu majority was left behind. Naturally, resentment grew. After independence in 1962, the power flipped. The Hutu majority took control, and waves of violence erupted against the Tutsis. Many fled the country to neighboring Uganda, Burundi, and Congo. These exiles would later form the Rwandan Patriotic Front, or RPF. By the 1990s, Rwanda was a fragile state, poor, overpopulated, and politically unstable. But the real fuel for the fire was hate propaganda. Newspapers and radio stations relentlessly spread poisonous lies, calling Tutsis cockroaches, invaders, and an existential threat to Hutu survival. Then came the spark. On April 6, 1994, a plane carrying Rwanda's president, Juvenal Habyarimana, was shot down. To this day, no one knows for sure who did it. But within hours, the plan was set in motion. Roadblocks appeared across the country. Kill lists were activated. Hate radio stations began broadcasting direct orders. The message was chillingly clear. Kill the Tutsi. Kill the traitors. That night, the genocide began. For the next 100 days, Rwanda became a slaughterhouse. Militias known as the Interahamwe hunted Tutsis with machetes, clubs, and guns. Neighbors betrayed neighbors. Even children were not spared. Women were systematically raped, often deliberately infected with HIV. Churches, once considered places of refuge, became massacre sites when priests locked the doors and called in the killers. An estimated 800,000 to 1,000 people were murdered. That's nearly 10,000 people every single day, a rate of killing even faster than the Holocaust. But here's what makes this even worse. The genocide wasn't hidden. The world knew. Journalists filmed the carnage. UN peacekeepers on the ground sent desperate reports pleading for help. Yet the international community refused to act. The United Nations cut its peacekeeping force from 2,500 to just 270 soldiers. The US government deliberately avoided using the word genocide because it would legally obligate them to intervene. Western leaders dismissed the horror as just another African tribal conflict. In reality, it was a carefully organized extermination. Still, amid the darkness, there were sparks of incredible courage. Some Hutu risked their own lives to hide their Tutsi neighbors. Journalists like the BBC's Fergal Keane exposed the horror to the world, refusing to let it remain in the shadows. Most importantly, the Rwandan Patriotic Front, led by Paul Kagame, launched a military campaign to stop the killings. By July 1994, the RPF had captured the capital, Kigali, finally ending the genocide. But the victory came at a terrible cost, a country in ruins, 1 million dead, and millions more displaced. When the killing finally stopped, the world woke up, but it was too late. Refugee camps in neighboring Congo were overflowing, many controlled by the very perpetrators of the genocide. Disease spread like wildfire, millions were displaced, and Rwanda itself was left deeply traumatized. The new government faced impossible questions. How do you rebuild a society where killers and survivors must live side by side? How do you forgive a neighbor who slaughtered your family? Rwanda turned to gacaca courts, a traditional system of community justice. Over a decade, millions of cases were heard. Some perpetrators confessed their crimes. Some survivors found it in their hearts to forgive. But the scars remain. The genocide also reshaped international law. The UN established the International Criminal Tribunal for Rwanda, charging leaders, politicians, and even radio broadcasters for crimes against humanity. It was the first time in history that media leaders were convicted for inciting genocide. Here's the most difficult truth to swallow. The genocide could have been stopped. Declassified documents show that world leaders knew exactly what was happening. The UN commander, General Romeo Dallaire, begged for reinforcements, stating he could stop the killings with just 5,000 troops. He was ignored. Instead, the world abandoned Rwanda. This failure haunts global politics to this day. Every time a leader says, "Never again," Rwanda stands as a stark reminder of that hypocrisy. 30 years later, Rwanda has transformed. Under Paul Kagame's leadership, Kigali is now one of Africa's cleanest and safest capitals. The country fiercely promotes unity. There are no more Hutu or Tutsi, only Rwandans. But the legacy of the genocide still casts a long shadow. Kagame is praised for rebuilding the nation, but he's also criticized for his authoritarian rule, for silencing dissent, and for using the genocide as political armor. Some call Rwanda a success story. Others warn that it is a fragile piece. The Rwandan genocide is more than just a story of hate. It's a warning. It shows how easily propaganda can turn neighbors into killers. It shows how the world can look away when certain lives are deemed less valuable. And it shows how healing is possible, but never complete. So the next time you hear a leader declare "never again," remember Rwanda. Remember the 1 million voices that were silenced in just 100 days. And ask yourself, if it happened again today, would the world act? Or would we, once again, do nothing? Thank you for watching. If this story moved you, please consider liking this video and subscribing for more content that matters.